Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. So we're going to talk about all the latest news events for the day, and obviously mainly discussing Iran, and we'll also be talking about Nvidia, Deepseek, and also India as well. So pretty much house today. It's going to be a lot of fireworks, so get ready. So before I start, guys, don't forget to join my new channel. Just go over there and subscribe. You don't need to do much, just button and subscribe. I'm the one that's making the videos, so I'm doing all the hard work, so you guys only have to subscribe and listen. So we try and do some high IQ discussions on the new channel. So the current channel you're listening this on, what we do is just cover all the daily news, and on the new channel we cover basically high IQ discussions and topics. Today's topic, I'm going to be talking about the real reason America was in Afghanistan. It's basically for Opium Wars Part 3. They wanted to, you know, use Afghanistan as an opium trade to to sell to China and also to Iran. However, this did not work on China, but unfortunately, it has worked on Iran, and I'll show you some data and stats. And so yeah, so we'll go over that, and we'll also go over some of the latest day's news as well. So without further ado, guys, don't forget to go to my new channel. It's links on my description, and let's start the show. So Trump has done it again. He's done a 180. You know, I can't remember the amount of times I've made videos saying that he's going to attack, he's not going to attack, he's made a peace deal, he's not attacking, he is attacking, he wants to nuke Iran, he's not going to nuke Iran, he's going to do a peace deal, now he's going to attack again, now he wants a peace deal, now he's backing down. That's exactly what he's been doing. He's back and forth, up and down, and I have a feeling, guys. Well, it's not feeling, it's more than a feeling. Apologies, it's more than a feeling. He's doing all of this just for the stock market. Because what he does, he sends some tweets, tweets like these, for example, with bombs, and, he talks about, nuking Iran, destroying Iran, destroying its people. He says that one day, and the next day, he wants a peace deal, and he agrees to all of Iran's terms. It's really bizarre, guys. And now today he's doing a 180. He's saying that he's not going to agree to Iran's terms. It looks like, and the market's been going up and down based on that news. The market's been going crazy, going up and down. Because one minute he's agreed to all of Iran's terms, and oil prices started going down, and, stocks started going up. And just a few hours ago, the news coming out of the administration is Trump is backing down. He says he's not going to agree to the deal. It's crazy, guys. It's absolutely market manipulation here. And I think he's figured out, Trump has figured out that he can make a lot of money from the stock market by doing this. So he's going to carry on doing this for months or years, as long as he's in office. He's going to keep doing it, guys. Him and his friends and his family, his sons, they're going to make hundreds of billions from this. Hundreds of billions. Absolutely crazy. And people are letting him get away with it. This is not normal. You cannot suddenly say, I've agreed to all the peace deals and everything, everything's, and suddenly the market drops. And suddenly you turn a 180. And how many times has he done a 180? How many times has he tackled? I can't remember. I've lost count with the amount of time he's tackled on Iran. This is pure market manipulation, guys. However, it does sound like Israel also had a lot to do with it as well. I think if Trump wanted to end this war, wash his hands of it, declare that he's a winner, and declare that he's done a deal better than JCPOA, I think he would have done it. I think Israel is basically not letting him, because if you remember yesterday's video, somebody was shooting the White House, and funnily enough, FBI and nobody is mentioning who did it. Well, they mentioned the person did it, but they didn't mention who was behind it. And it must have been Israel, and I think they probably gave Trump a warning. They said, and I think Israel's name is all over the JFK files, guys. I mean, there's ex-CIA members coming out and saying this. You know, people like John Kiriakou, who was the ex-CIA. He's also been saying that the reason they're not releasing the JFK files is because it's got Israel's name all over it. I would suspect same with 9/11 and many other, false flags that's happened in America throughout the years. So you see, guys, I think the American administration is basically held at gunpoint. They're either being bribed with the EP files, you know what I mean, ep- the EP files, and also I think Trump is super scared he's going to be shot like JFK. And they know Israel. They probably know Israel was behind the JFK shooting. That's why they're probably scared. They think, "Oh, I don't want to be shot." Absolutely crazy how a small country, can basically, dictate terms to a superpower like United States. Absolutely crazy the amount of hold that Israel has over the United States, guys. Absolutely crazy. But yeah, I saw today. Trump must have been under huge pressure. People like Lindsey Graham and Mark Levine and you know Shapiro, they were on overtime. You have that Luma girl, what's her name? Luma, Laura Luma. Yeah, and all the Zios were literally after Trump today, all over Twitter. And I think Trump must have had a huge amounts of pressure from his donors, Miriam Adelson, for example, and other pro-Israeli Zionists, and he had to change his mind, do a 180. And before he did the 180, he probably put some money on the stock market, put some money on the oil prices, and probably making a killing. I know there's the markets are shut down today, but he could put some money down before the market opens. He hasn't made any official statements, but when he does, you can see huge market movements happening. But yeah, that's the story, guys. Absolutely crazy. I think it's going to carry on. This is going to carry on until Trump gets bored with the hundreds of billions that he's made. So there's a story flying around that the United States and Israel wanted to put Ahmadinejad back into power in Iran. Uh, it's all over the Washington Times or New York Times. Yeah, New York Times. And there was an article saying that Israel and America were trying to put him in charge. And initially, when you look at this story, you think, another Israeli lie, because these guys lie. Trump lies, and Israel lies a lot. You think another BS story coming out of the New York Times. But when I thought about it, I had a little think about it, and I think that there might be some element of truth in it, to be honest. And the reason I think that is because, I mean, look at Hamas, right? Hamas has been funded by Israel. It's been funded by Netanyahu, and they actually created Hamas. Israel created Hamas as a counter to the PLO, and they need a boogeyman. They need basically a villain to scare the people into doing what they're doing. in Palestine and in South Lebanon. And they need like a real cartoon villain, a real cartoon villain character, a real old school villain. Like Thanos. I want to kill half the universe. That kind of villain. And there's no bigger villain in Iran than Ahmadinejad, according to Israel, because he's the one that said that he wants to. He's the one that basically said to Israel that he doesn't believe in the Holocaust. I mean, a lot of people would agree with him, to be honest. Let's not go into that. And also, he also mentioned that he wants to end Israel. I think he said something along those lines. He wants to see the end of Israel or something. So he's a real cartoon villain to the Israelis and to the Americans. And I think that if they put him in power, they can get the Americans to support a war with Iran or maybe even a nuke on Iran because they would make him, basically they would use him as a super enemy. They're saying, oh, he wants to end Israel. He said he's going to end Israel. He's going to like nuke Israel, so we have to nuke them first. I think that's probably the reason why. I mean, they're using Hamas as an excuse. I mean, they're the ones that created Hamas, and they're using Hamas now as an excuse to genocide the Palestinian people. And also, they're using Hezbollah as an excuse to genocide the South Lebanon people. And they'll probably use this guy, Ahmadinejad, as an excuse to do it on Iran, to drop the nukes or do something worse. So I think that that's totally the thinking why they want to put him in power. Because at the moment, the Iranian leadership, none of them has had said anything bad about Israel or the United States. None of them said they want to end Israel, and none of them have said anything controversial. And the American people are not behind this war, so they probably need somebody, a cartoon villain like Ahmadinejad. I'm not saying he's a cartoon villain. This is I'm talking in terms of what the Israelis think and what the Americans think. And they would love somebody like that in charge. So basically they got an excuse to do their worst to Iran. So yeah, that's probably the thought process behind it, guys. There's another story I saw today which I found interesting. Trump has basically been being his usual gangster style, you know, um, his gangster style of negotiating. So he went up to the Gulf countries today, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and he asked them, and Pakistan also, and he asked them to join the Abraham Accords and basically normalizing relations with Israel. Uh, if he does a peace deal with Iran, that was his condition. So his condition to the Gulf countries was, if I do a peace deal with Iran, you guys need to sign the Abraham Accords. And apparently he was on the phone to these guys on a conference call, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Pakistan. And the phone was, this is such a funny story. And nobody was talking on the phone because I think everybody on the line was so shocked with Trump's statement. And nobody was talking on the phone. And Trump was like, "Hello, is anyone there? Hello, is anyone there?" I'm not joking, guys. This is actual. This is the story coming out of Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. So he was like, "Is anyone there? Hello, hello." It was just hilarious. And obviously, the Pakistanis, Saudi Arabians, Qatar, they were just shocked on the other side of the line, and they were just thinking, "Oh God." So, so yeah, that's another funny story that happened today, guys. So let's talk about Deepseek, shall we? So as you know, Deepseek released a new product, and they totally put it on open source. And they've also dropped their price by 75% as well. The API price has gone down by 75%, and they made that into a permanent drop. It's not like a opening offer or anything like that. It's a permanent drop of 75%. And the American AI, conglomerates are going absolutely nuts, guys. So this is kind of a graphic to show you what they are. So it's basically a big bubble. So what happens is Oracle, for example, Oracle will buy 40 billion worth of Nvidia chip purchases and 300 billion deal for data centers, and then OpenAI will buy 200 billion deal to buy Nvidia chips, 100 billion, and Nvidia will invest 100 billion into their OpenAI, and then Nvidia will invest 100 to 200 billion in Oracle. So it's basically a cycle. It's like a cycle. These big companies are just paying each other, basically. So they're not making any money from AI at the moment because AI is not, something people are making much money out of. It's actually making a loss. This is all borrowed money, and they are just basically paying each other. One person buys Nvidia chips, and Nvidia in return pays for their data centers, and and vice versa. So all the big companies pay each other and do each other favors. That's how money is moving in AI. And they are charging a lot. The American AI business, we're talking hundreds of billions here. America's got huge data centers, AI data centers, taking up lots of energy, and it costs a lot of money as well. But what China is doing is they are putting it all on, open source. So it's kind of like AI socialism in China. They're doing it for the people because when you put it on open source, everybody benefits because you are putting your source code out there, so everyone else can benefit from the source code. So the people benefit, and in America, it's all a big secret, and it's all about companies making a profit. Forget about the workers or the little people, and it's all about companies, and it's a real capitalism style of AI. And I say this because look at how many jobs people are losing, in United States and the West because of AI. Companies are laying hundreds and thousands of people at the moment. I mean, I just heard that IBM is getting rid of huge amounts of people. The other tech companies are doing the same, all being replaced by AI, and some have been obviously replaced by Indians as well. But even now with H1B visas, there's a lot of scrutiny going on. But I think mostly it's been replaced by AI, and the only people benefiting is these big major corporations. They're the ones that are actually benefiting from it. And the middle class who are relying on working on these jobs, they're just getting fired. So, like I said, guys, the Chinese model for AI seems to be socialist model where everybody wins. They are sharing their source code, and it's for the people. When you share the source code, you're sharing your knowledge with everyone else, and it's just not the same. And the American style, obviously, you see the capitalism where all the big companies make money. They all do favors for each other. They circle this money around. Um, and that's how they are making the money, and that's why it's a big bubble. When one of these companies fail, or something major happens, they will all fail because this money is just being recycled. So when something happens to one of them, the whole system will just collapse. It's a major bubble, guys. So let's talk about India. So Marco Rubio was in India today, and he came out with a speech saying that Indian people should not have any sort of racism in Western countries and America, because they are getting a lot of racism at the moment. And Jay Shankar has basically come out and said that he's begging America to allow H1B visas to go to America because there's a lot of scrutiny going on between H1B visas now, and they're not allowing as many Indians now as they did previously. So Jaishankar has come online and saying he literally is begging. He's begging America and other countries to take India's best and brightest. Why is he? So why is India, who 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 say they are a superpower, begging other countries to take Indians? Why are they doing that? And why do the Indians that I mean, I've seen this online so many times. All the Indians that say that India is a superpower, they're working abroad. They're working in Canada or United States or UK, and they all seem to be on Twitter saying, "Yeah, India is a superpower. India's going to be a superpower." Mate, you're not even in India. So why is Jaishankar basically begging these countries to take on Indians? Why is he doing that? And I'll tell you why. This is the reason, guys. So India's main moneymaker is Indians working abroad. So look at this number: 137 billion of money comes from these Indians working abroad, going into India. So they're making huge amounts of money. Because what these Indians do, they work abroad. They work in like big tech jobs and big, money, big major companies. They make a lot of money. They don't recycle that money into the economy. They don't, use it for consumption or anything like that. They basically save all that money and they send it back to India, and they send it to their families in India, or they buy a mansion in India, and they work for like 10, 20 years, and some of them go back, some don't. I think a lot of them don't want to go back. But the point is they send their money home to help their families, their mothers, fathers, they got extended families as well, aunties, uncles, their nieces, and 137 billion goes to India. If you compare that to 4 years ago, it's 83.1 billion. So it's almost doubling, guys, almost doubling compared to a few years ago. So there's more and more Indians going abroad. I mean, in UK alone, 250,000 Indians come to UK on visas, work visas, and student visas as well. But most of them end up staying to work, and they take up all the best jobs, all the IT jobs, tech jobs, and everything. And so there's a lot of them going into Canada, a lot of them going into US, a lot of them going into Europe. So this is, India's best money making scheme. It's a scam, basically. And then what you have is some of these Indians tend to, you know, get promoted, and you can see, somebody says this is why Americans cannot get jobs, because all these top companies are now, these CEOs have been promoted to top companies, and what are these CEOs doing? What are these Indian CEOs doing? They're basically sacking American workers. So, like this guy. This guy is the NetApp Indian CEO. He took 500 million in US defense funds and fired 700 Americans. And obviously, he's been hiring a batch of H1B replacements. Then you have this guy, who is the IBM's Indian CEO, Arvind Krishna. He's fired 9,000 Americans, and he continues to sponsor H1B visas. 100,000 Indians working as H1B visas. And the company basically files 3,000 H1B visas positions annually. So what you have is basically all of these top jobs are being going into Indians, and these Indian CEOs have been obviously hired to save the company money. And how do they save money? They fire the local people, whether you're American, whether you're Canadian, whether you're British, because these guys are far too expensive. So they get rid of them and they replace them with the H1B visas or Indians, and it's much, much cheaper. That's how the companies save costs. This is capitalism, guys. Capitalism. Uh, the companies will do anything to save money. They don't really care about the worker. They just care about how much pennies they can save. So now the Indians have been taken over, but now the Indians are screaming because there's a lot more scrutiny with them, getting all these visas. Plus, AI is taking a lot of their jobs as well. So the Indians have been obviously replacing the white workers or the native workers, and now a lot of these Indian workers are being replaced by AI because companies will always find ways to save money, and if they can fire you and save money to do it, they will do it. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for today. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. And don't forget to check out the new channel and get involved in the some of the high IQ discussions we have there. Thanks, guys. See you soon.